What's up, y'all? This is Brandon, also known as Chicken Fried. We're in the studio today talking about Troy's first trip to America. In the studio with me, I've got Troy, also known as Tragic. I've got Hunter, also known as Slaytech, and I've got Connor, also known as Claus. We're chilling out, just kind of talking, kind of documenting what Troy got to do while he was here. First episode tonight is going to be talking about just kind of his trip from Sydney, Australia to America, and kind of our first weekend together. There's going to be 3 parts to this podcast, so keep your eyes out for parts 2 and 3. But first thing, we're going to go ahead and get into Troy's last day in Australia and his first day in America. Troy, what was that last day in Australia like?
It was a pretty interesting sort of day. So originally I was leaving Sydney on a Friday night or Friday afternoon, but I decided to go to work for a couple of hours that morning.
That was smart.
Yeah, which turns out to be, I could have probably done the full day eventually with how things worked out. But yeah, so we went from there. Like I went to work for a couple of hours, got home, had a shower, done some stuff I needed to do. And then we started to head towards Sydney Airport around, I would want to say about 1 p.m. For what I was originally planning for a 4:45 p.m. flight out of Sydney to Dallas. And then, yeah, that didn't really keep our structure too much. As soon as I got to Sydney Airport, we found that my flight had already been delayed. I think it was about an hour. So I wasn't too worried about it. Obviously, it's just an extra hour I had to sit around. But yeah, so it was checked in, said goodbye to family, went through cleared all customs pretty quickly, and then just started to walk my way around, find the gate, settle in. And that was the first good portion of my day. Like, was checked in, ready to at the gate about 2:30, I want to say. And then, yeah, we didn't actually board until 7:30 p.m. to leave. So I was sitting at Sydney for close to, I want to say, about six hours, maybe 5, depending. So, yeah.
And I mean, I just remember during that time, I was actually sitting at the firehouse for a fire training. And I remember I got a Facebook message from somebody I did not know. And it was funny because I didn't read the message. I was going to delete it because, every now and then on Facebook, you get people that just randomly, whatever bot they work for, send you messages. But I actually opened it and I read it, and it was from Colleen. And it was, "Hey, this is Troy's mom. I'm just wanting to, check in so we can keep up with Troy's adventure in America. We know he sucks at sending pictures, so send us some pictures." So, I ended up chatting with his mom for about an hour, and that was when I really realized, oh crap, it's happening. Like, it's time, it's go time. And I remember I found an app that I could track your flights, and I tracked your flights from the first delay. And I remember even going home that night, and, I was laying in bed with my fiance, and like every 10 minutes I was checking my phone going, okay, is there an update? Is there an update? Okay, he's in the air now. Oh, okay, we got 15 hours. Okay, we've got 12 hours. And I remember I did not sleep at all that night. Like, at all, because it was Friday for you, but it was still Thursday for us. And I still had to go to work Friday. And I just remember I was like, this is going to suck because I ain't going to be able to focus at work because, how long was the flight from Sydney to Dallas, Texas?
I think it was supposed to be about 15, maybe 16, and we ended up making up about an hour travel time. So if it was a 15-hour flight, we ended up landing within 14. If it was 14 hours, we landed in 13. So in airtime, we shaved off an hour what was expected.
Yeah.
But it was a fairly long flight. Yeah. So.
And I found out later, like, I thought this was a sweet message that Troy's mom had sent just to me. Come to find out, after I talked with Hunter, she sent this message to everybody. I mean, it was everybody got the same message.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. She was wanting to make sure we had all the pictures, the videos ready to go. But
Yep.
what time did you land in Dallas?
So if I left Sydney at 7:30, let's just say I left at 7:30, I landed in Dallas at say like 7:05
Right.
p.m. Friday. So from when I left Sydney until I landed in Dallas, I really gained like 40 minutes of a Friday that I wouldn't have had if I stayed in Sydney. So I gained some time. So I left Friday at 7:30, let's say, and I landed in Dallas on Friday at 7:05.
Which is a weird concept because, I mean, you flew halfway across the world and it's like you didn't even lose time. Although we know very well you spent a lot of time on an airplane.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a long flight, but to be fair, the flight was pretty good from my side. Like, I got onto the plane. I had like movies ready on Netflix and that downloaded, so I knew I was gonna have movies I wanted to watch. But I actually looked at the ones that were on the plane. It was like Marvel, so I ended up watching like the new Spider-Man that came out like a year or two ago that I should have watched ages ago. But
Right on.
I mean, it was probably good because that was a good like 3 hours of the first
leg.
Yeah, of the 15 hours I didn't have to worry about. And then,
The one thing I do want you to hit on is that conversation you had with customs.
yeah, so when I landed in Dallas, clearing, I can't remember if it was security or the customs. It would have been security, I'm pretty sure. It was the first set through. So I went through, like, I let everyone know I landed. So this was within like 10 minutes of landing. I walk up, like, get on my passport checked. They asked me what I'm here for. I was like, I'm here for a wedding. And the official was like, so what are you going to do with the other 3 weeks you're here? And I didn't quite know how to answer it because I'm here for vacation. But it was like, I didn't think he was going to believe me. So I was like, oh. And he's like, where are you staying? And I also said, I'm staying in St. Louis. And then after I cleared, I was like, oh, I'm not actually staying in St. Louis. Like, I'm still driving away from St. Louis. That's just like the closest airport to where I want to go. So I realized I sort of lied to him a little bit to actually get
Way
through.
to get arrested.
Yep. Coming for you now.
On your international airport from Sydney to Dallas, was like your thought like you're gonna sleep or you're gonna stay up the whole time to try to like get sleep schedule adjusted or what?
No, I didn't really think about it. Obviously I got on and it was 7 o'clock. So I was like, if I can watch a movie or two, then sleep, it might get me pretty close to like a time, especially like for when I land, probably might not be as tired or I might be ready to go to sleep. But then it was also weird. So I got on, I didn't think I slept well, but looking back at it, I think I did sleep pretty well on that flight. Because I remember I maybe watched 2 movies, so there might have been 6 hours where I was watching, and the rest of it I would have been asleep. So, or would have been like nodding on and off, or like tracking. Like I reckon I slept pretty well, especially because it ended up turning from an afternoon flight to like a red-eye flight. So, like by the time we took off, it was bright, and then within like an hour, it was pitch black outside. Like couldn't see nothing. So yeah, it was sort of confusing as well. And then like obviously when I got to like mainland America, we were getting served like breakfast food, and like local time was like 2 p.m. So it was kind of weird. Like we had like, I want to say it was like fruit, like a little fruit platter. But it was pretty weird that on that flight.
Oh, yeah. That they gave you breakfast during lunchtime?
Yeah.
Oh, I bet.
And then like you're coming to a household and you're staying with these people and you got like a couple of night owls. So like realistically, he's more on an Australian sleep schedule than a U.S. sleep schedule.
Yeah. That probably also ends up why I wasn't jet lagged until this like the second weekend.
Right.
Because I wasn't sitting up at night thinking, oh, everyone's in bed, I've got to get to sleep.
Went to someone who has a normal sleep schedule.
Yeah, if it was the other way around, I would have been screwed. Like I would have been jet lagged for the first couple of days.
Yeah, for sure.
So
yeah.
the next thing that we're going to talk about, of course, is the second part of your flight, which is Dallas, Texas to St. Louis. But the thing is, we're going to kind of interweave these stories because we're going to talk about Troy's perspective, but we're also going to talk about the perspective of the other three of us. Because the other three of us, three big old Missouri grown boys, hopped in my Ford Explorer and went and picked him up. And I tell you what, we left our small town, California, Missouri, about the same time you took off from Dallas. I think it was about the same time. Or you'd been in the air for like 10 minutes.
I reckon it would have been pretty close.
Because what time did we leave?
I mean, it was right at 9 o'clock or something.
Yeah.
We gave ourselves about an hour and a half to get up there. And
You might have left a little bit before I left then.
yeah.
Because the flight from Dallas to St. Louis, they said it was going to be a 2-hour flight. And I think we also done that in about an hour 10, hour 20. And I was only in St. Louis for 10 minutes before you were there. And we also sat on the tarmac for a fairly long time.
So I want to start off with me, Hunter, and Connor. I pulled up at their house to pick them up, and I get out, and of course, I was already repping my my Ozone hat. Of course, we're going to pick up Troy. We got to wear our Ozone stuff. First thing I noticed was Hunter had his on too, so we were both repping. And then I turn around and I see Connor walk out, and he's wearing, I'm talking overalls and a pair of camo Crocs. And I swear I just had to laugh because I didn't know what else to do. You just have to laugh at that because that is probably the most Missouri thing you're ever going to see is this big old, what are you, 6'3", 6'4"?
6'3".
Yeah, 6'3" boy walking out in overalls and camo Crocs. Let's go pick us up an Australian.
Oh, yeah.
Gotta introduce him right, show him what we're about.
So we were able to get on the road. We stopped about halfway just to kind of take a bathroom break and grab some drinks, and then we made it the rest of the way up to St. Louis. And then I'm going to let Hunter talk about us getting to the airport and then getting into the airport.
Now, I mean, us picking Troy up with the little bro wearing overalls, I mean, that's like warmest welcome to Missouri as you can get.
And
And
it's definitely up there.
luckily, St. Louis, it wasn't an issue, getting in and out. It's very, right off the highway, right off the interstate. So it was pretty quiet as far as not a lot of traffic coming in and out. But the parking garage,
It was hectic.
yeah, it was a loophole. Definitely,
Yeah.
went around, didn't know where the hell we went,
Because
while we're trying to find our Australian,
Yeah, multiple terminals and we were Terminal 1 and then we parked at the bottom floor so we could be by luggage pickup and stuff. And we got in there and we're just sitting here waiting and we were all just looking through every single person trying to pick out which one was you.
Yeah, well, it was pretty funny as well. So going back to when, before I even left Sydney, obviously I had to declare and let America know where I was going to be staying. So I had to message and I was asking for some addresses, and I got addresses. These boys sent me everything. They sent me multiple houses. They sent me hotel addresses for everywhere I was going to be staying. They sent me the address. So I was also sitting there and I was mucking around and I told them I needed to know exactly what they were wearing, and these boys let me know exactly what they're going to be wearing 24 hours roughly before they picked me up, which blew my mind.
Yeah.
Except for Connor, obviously, because he didn't tell me what he was going to be wearing.
he was going to show up like he was showing up from a radio, county fair.
I didn't get that. I didn't get the memo.
Yeah, drive to St. Louis, it wasn't bad at all. Traffic honestly was pretty
Yeah,
easy.
We were traveling, had a good time.
Yeah, for it being 9, I mean, picking you up, it was a ghost town pretty much, other than parked over cars.
Yeah, it was pretty. It was the only tough part was getting in and figure out what garage we had to go to and terminal. But other than that, highway driving good because anyone who's traveled 70 to St. Louis work hour, it's dead stop sometimes.
Right. Now, when you were in Dallas, how you had a little break before flying to St. Louis. and you were talking about how you went on, you kind of walked a couple miles.
Yeah, well, I didn't really know at the time, but so originally on my ticket, it didn't tell me exactly where I had to go when I got to Dallas. It didn't give me a gate or a terminal number. So I got through all the security there and down into the bit where I could actually go find the terminal. And I found a, I don't know what you call them, like one of those help desks.
Oh, yeah.
If that's what you call them. So I found one of them and I asked the lady, and she's like, "Oh, you're going to be in C26 or whatever it was at the time." And I looked up and I was in D, and I was like, "Okay." She's like, "Well," I was like, "Where's this?" Like, I obviously haven't been here before, so I was asking her like directions, and she's like, "Oh, you can just follow this all the way down to the end. When you get to the end, turn right, and you follow it up, and then finding it'll be on your left somewhere." And I was like, "Okay." She's like, or you can take the Skylink. And I was thinking, oh, it's not too bad. I'll just walk. I've got a couple of hours. And I think that was probably my biggest regret in Dallas, because
Anyone who's been to the Dallas International Airport knows that it's massive. It's big. Like,
yeah, like
27 gates per letter. It's big.
yes, and like so I went from, I was walking for, I reckon, maybe 35, 40 minutes, just to get to my gate. And obviously, I knew I had time. I had like 4 or 5 hours, like a layover.
Right.
But I wasn't comfortable enough, especially for the first time traveling alone, to go and explore before I knew where I had to go. So I didn't stop to get anything to eat. I think I might have stopped in the toilet or the restrooms
Right.
once before I even found the help desk. But yeah, it was a hike, and like I was carrying a pretty heavy bag by that stage. Like,
Now, were you on time for your flight? Did everything
yeah. So
connect?
I got to so my flight was always going to be, I think at the highest point it was going to be a 6-hour layover, which I was fine with. By the time I landed, I think I had about 3.5. So I knew I still had time, and I didn't have to get through all the check-in stuff again. So I already had my ticket printed and ready to go. But so I got to the gate, and it was 26. About 10 minutes before I had to board, they said, "Oh, this flight's now at gate 20." So I had to backtrack probably a good half mile back to the actual gate I needed.
Just had to book it,
Yeah.
Yeah,
full
and
sprint in Australian,
they
kangaroo style.
yeah, they didn't but they didn't announce it. It just popped up on the TV saying this flight's now at 20, and like you could have been up there for 20, 25 minutes, but by the time I noticed, I was like, oh shit.
Yeah.
And I just started to, I didn't run, like I walked pretty fast when I'm in a
Little
rush.
hurry, yep.
Yeah, and like I wouldn't have been able to run anyway, because at that point the airport was packed.
Yeah,
So I was
as
sort
Dallas would be.
of had to like weave a little bit to get through it all. So
Seeing like, all right, Chicken, you talked about when it like really set in, like, oh my gosh, Troy's gonna be here. When did that set in for you, Hunter? Because for me, it probably really set in when we pulled into the parking garage and we got out and we are just sitting there waiting. And the walk in, it was like, oh my gosh, he's here. We're gonna meet him for the first time.
Well, and even before I had the opportunity to have that thought, my only thought was, we're really going to meet this dude with 2 big old boys and 1 dude in overalls.
Yep.
And I remember we got in there and Connor turns to me and Hunter and goes, "Guys, everybody's staring at me right now." I'm like, well, what did you expect? You're at St. Louis International Airport, and you're in nothing but overalls and Crocs.
Yep.
Yeah, these guys are flying in from Dallas, Texas. They're probably used to seeing cowboy hats, but you ain't wearing no cowboy hat.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I remember my first thought was Troy's coming from pretty warm climate into, Missouri. That night it was frigid. It was cold.
Yeah,
It was.
That was
It
like
was.
the
Yes.
first cold night in a while.
but it was also like, sorry to cut in, but from when I landed in Dallas, it was 80 degrees at Dallas, or 80 degrees Fahrenheit at Dallas. So I was like, oh, it's not too bad. And I had like a real thin jacket in my bag. And just because I was too lazy to put it back in my bag, and I was pulling out my phone charger or something out of my bag, I was like, I'll throw it on, and it was probably the play, because from
It was a smart idea.
like for that, like the next 2 hours before I like boarded, it got pretty cold. The flight was pretty cold, and then like when we walked out at St. Louis, it was freezing.
And I just remember my favorite part of sitting in that airport was the three of us almost giddy like schoolgirls going, where is he?
Yep.
Is he going to walk out wearing like kangaroo skin or how is he going to look?
Yeah.
Because we've always had that fight of like,
Seeing
Troy's
like,
always said he's like 5'8", but we've never truly been able to verify that because, of course, they're on metric over there. We're on Imperial over here. So, you know, I'm right at 6 foot, whatever. Hunter's right at 5'8", 5'9".
Yep.
Of course, we said Connor's like 6'3", 6'4". So, I mean, we're all pretty tall dudes, and we didn't know what to expect. If we were going to see an Australian coming up that set up at my shoulders, or if he was going to end up being like 6'3" because he doesn't know how to measure.
Yeah.
I mean, all those are possibilities. And I remember he finally came around the corner. We're all like, oh, okay, he's not short.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he's shorter than me and Connor, but he's not 5'4".
Right. He's not short. Like your average height for American, I would say.
So we ended up, you know, we had our meeting. You know, Hunter walked up, gave him the first handshake and hug, and he came to me, and we got our big hug out, and you know, kind of said hi to Connor and gave him his handshake and hug, and went over and kind of waited the 5-10 minutes it took to get his bags off the plane.
what was your guys' first impression of him? Because like you can know someone over the internet, but it's like completely different person. Like I've known this guy for eight or 9 years and over the phone and playing games, but it's like person's completely different. I don't know what he likes to do outside of games.
That's the biggest thing everybody asked me when it came to him coming. You know, how do you know him? Well, we played video games together. You did what?
Yep.
So that's just how we met, you know? And it's been, we set 3 or 4 nights on this trip trying to figure out how long we've actually known each other. And I think we decided, what was it, early 19?
Yeah, I'd like to think it was early 19. I think we still might be out a little bit, but I think it was probably, it would have been either late 2018 or early 2019.
I mean, so it's been, 5 years at least that we've known each other?
Yeah.
So, and we've done video calls, we've done, you know, meetings for Ozone, we've done, you know, just
podcast.
We'll sit and talk, and you know, we did. I've done one podcast with Ozone, and that one never even got posted, just because it went off the rails pretty quickly.
Yeah.
A
little rowdy,
but
too rowdy.
Oh yeah.
Well, there was a lot of alcohol involved that night by all parties involved.
Yes, sir.
But we had a lot of fun, and I'm glad that, you know, Troy was able to come over here. He took the opportunity. He came over for my wedding, and we're going to talk about that really in depth in episode number 2. But we do have a couple more things we want to hit on here. The first stop we made after we left the airport, we just wanted to stop and get something to drink really quick. Didn't know if Troy had an opportunity to really, you know, get anything to drink on the plane. So I just, in my phone, clicked on the first quick trip I found, and my God, did we choose the wrong one. We pulled up at this quick trip, and it is in the ghettos of St. Louis. And I remember going in, and like, Troy is so excited. He got to spend his first tenner.
Yeah,
for those Americans, that's a $10 bill. And what did you buy? Do you remember?
I think it was a body armor.
Body armor.
Yep.
Body armor and did you buy
No, I think I only bought a body armor. I think it was the strawberry one as well.
strawberry banana?
Yeah.
Yeah, strawberry banana.
And I had to laugh because, I mean, like, my now wife, Hannah, loves body armor. She drinks them quite often. And for him to pick it up and go, what is this? I've never heard of these before. That was the first reality check I had that, man, he really is. I mean, it's not like he lived in Chicago and he's tricked us the entire time.
Right.
He's really, truly from far away, and he truly doesn't know some of the things that we have here in America.
Oh, yeah.
So we were there, and I remember we walked out, and there was a dude literally checking his vehicle for damage from some kind of hit and run he was just a part of.
It definitely looked like he was just in a vehicle accident. Yeah.
And also let's get the point across. This wasn't like 10 p.m. or early. This was like 1:30.
One.
Probably,
no, when we left we left right at midnight.
1. Yeah, it was probably 12:30 by this point.
Yeah, 12:15, 12:30. So we got done there, and we decided, you know what, we're just going to make it back to our halfway point, which was Kingdom City, and we're going to stop there. We didn't know for sure where we were going to stop. We just want to stop around that area. And we got about halfway to Kingdom City. We said, you know what, Denny's. Denny's is open 24 hours there. So we're going to stop at Denny's, and we're going to get him his first American meal. So, Troy, what was the first thing you noticed when you walked into that Denny's? Do you remember?
Not particularly.
I'm giving you the opportunity to tell your
Went to the
bathroom story.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
that wasn't straight away. Like, we did sit down. But yeah, so, like, for anyone that doesn't know what Denny's is, it's like a, what do you call it?
American-style
breakfast
diner.
restaurant.
Yeah, it's a diner. So, but yeah, so we went in there, like, we sat down. I think we might have ordered out all our stuff, and I was like, I'm going to go to the restroom. So I went in there, and well, I didn't know, obviously I don't know what the toilets look like. Like, they're pretty similar to home, but I'm not sure, like, water levels.
Right.
So I done what I needed to, and I walked out, and I said to the boys, I was like, is the water always this high? And they didn't know what I was talking about. So
For the longest time, I'm like, what in the hell are you talking about, dude? I can't. He goes, is the water level always that high in the toilets?
Yep.
so
I'm like,
yeah.
Was it clogged? And he goes, I don't know. And he goes, check it when you go in there and you tell me if that's normal. And I remember I finally went, like, before we left, and I was like, I mean, everything looked normal to me. It didn't look like it was too high. I said, I think you probably clogged it, bud. And he goes, oh, well.
No, I didn't. I'm not saying I didn't clog it. Well, I went in there, and, like, this was probably like an inch from the rim. So, like, I was sitting there like, oh, like, if, like, surely that's not right. And I didn't think to look at the other toilet. But I also think someone was in there when I went in. So
Just go look at I'm going to look at all the toilets at
So-
Denny's.
like,
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if the toilet was clogged, and I'm pretty sure it was, and I still don't want to need to.
And you got like the perfect 2 in the morning, 1:30 in the morning Denny's waitress you could have ever got.
Oh,
like,
God, she did not want to be there.
she
No.
hated her job, and you could tell that she did not care.
This was the one thing as well leading up into Denny's. Obviously, tipping's big in America. Like, we don't tip back home. So I was like, so how do we do the tips? And the boys were like,
We're like, we don't tip her.
yeah,
She-
they're like, they still got to work for their tip. Like, they just don't get it because
yeah.
that's
Just because we ate there.
yeah,
Right.
it's more they still got to work for it. And then, like, if you want to tip, you can then tip. It's not like a 10% or a 15%. They give you a recommended, but it's not like.
It's whatever you feel like
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
deserve for the service they
And
gave.
then, like, I
pretty
was
much.
ordering my food, and I think it was me. And I was like, all right, this is what I want. And she looked at me. She's like, what? What's that? I was like, it's right here. And she's like, no. I showed her on the menu, and she's like, oh, my gosh, I've never heard this.
We
I'm
don't
like,
serve that after 10 p.m. We heard a
Yeah.
lot of that, especially with
Yeah,
Connor's
yeah,
order.
yeah.
Everyone else is like, I'll just have this. I'm like, yeah, that's fine, whatever. You know, Troy ordered a appetizer, and that was his meal. That was my favorite part of that was he goes, oh, man, this looks really good. It's on the appetizer menu. So he got, like, it was like their try-all.
Yeah,
really.
like there was like curly fries, there was some boneless chicken wings, there was some mozzarella sticks. I think the other one was onion rings.
Yeah. A
I
little
think
bit of
that
everything.
was
Yeah.
yeah, it was just a mix. So
Now,
and I
as
also
far-
wasn't starving, so
As far as like quantity, size, proportions, you getting a lot more food than you were at home.
So I can't really I don't really know because that itself I thought like if it's an appetizer I'm screwed for anything I'm gonna order. But like Macca's or McDonald's, it's pretty much the exact same. Obviously you can get a bigger drink.
Right.
But I think that was and the fries are bigger, but the burgers are the exact same.
So, the next thing, you know, we kind of got done with our little breakfast stop, and we decided, all right, we're ready to get home. Let's go ahead. So we drove, you know, Kingdom City, through Fulton, through, you know, a couple other small towns in mid-Missouri. And about the time we were pulling into Jeff City, and this is not a story I want to tell, but I have to tell it because it's so quintessential to Troy's entrance into America. Something I ate at Denny's did not sit well with old chicken fried. And about the time we hit the big bridge next to the Capitol in Jeff City, I had to poop. And I swear to God, it was one of those that came out of nowhere, and it was, you got to go now. Remember, we stopped at like 2 gas stations, and they were all closed because it's like, what, 2 a.m.?
Yep.
Yeah,
2:30 a.m.
2:30,
There was
2:33.
no place to stop. So we ended up finding the one sketchy gas station in Jeff
it's
City that was open.
Yep.
and I pulled my Explorer up to the front door, and I did my little waddle inside, and I grabbed that door handle, and it was locked. And I was like, oh, God. Oh, man, this ain't going to end well. And the guy in there starts yelling at me. I'm in here. You need to leave me alone. I'm like, oh, man. So I kind of started pacing the aisles, kind of deciding what my next course of action was, if I was going to try to make it to another gas station or if I was going to find a trash can or go behind their building or what was going to happen. Luckily, a guy came out just a couple seconds later. I went in and did my business. We were all was well. But I remember getting back into the car. All three of these guys tell me the same thing, and it makes me laugh so hard.
Yeah.
Because what happened?
I was sitting there because I had my window rolled down, and I was in the back passenger. And this guy came out, and he looked at me, and he's like, "You guys been in my vehicle?" And I'm just sitting there on my phone, and I'm like, I look up and he's looking at me. I'm like, "Oh, you're talking to me?" I was like, "No, we're just sitting there." And he's like, "Well, I got a dash cam in here. I'm going to check."
Right.
And we're like, "All right, we haven't been in there." And then we sitting there waiting for like 5-10 minutes. And this guy just rolls his window down as he's starting to back out. And he's like, "We only packed them big joints up in this boy." And we're sitting there waiting. And he just drives away in his beater car, just a little fart machine going down the road. And that's when you came back outside.
When it turned out it was the same guy that I was trying to wait on for the bathroom, which was funny.
Yeah.
But moral of the story, we got done there. We got back on the highway. We got the boys and Troy back to their house so they could settle in for the night. And I went ahead and went home. And I remember laying in bed. And at that point in time, it was like 3. I think I laid down back in bed at 3:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
And kind of, what did you guys do your first night? Anything?
It was pretty much 3 a.m. when you left our house. Not a lot. I mean, that's really when it kicked in.
I came
Yeah,
in
he
and
was
said
here.
my good nights, and we talked for a little bit, and then I went for bed. You guys, I think, stayed up a little bit later talking.
Yeah, just, talked the shit, hung out,
Yep.
let it sit in. And, I mean, we had to get up, early the next day, and we, trooped it.
Yep.
Well, let's fast forward to that next morning. About 11 o'clock, we 11:30, noon, whatever. We ended up meeting back up. Troy, what did we meet up for?
So we went and watched the local high school football game.
So my little brother's a freshman in high school. He got to dress out for varsity football, and Troy was excited to go watch some American football. So I was like, what, perfect opportunity. It's on a Saturday instead of a Friday night, so we can go watch, and it's not going to be a big deal. So we got to watch his first game, and it was kind of, it was a good experience, I think, and it got me and Troy talking about, American versus Australian schools. And, me, Hunter, and Connor all went to the same high school.
Yeah.
So we're kind of used to the American way when it comes to that.
Yep.
But I never realized, like, Troy was telling me that the stadium and the organized sports and, even painting lines on the field is not something he had at his school. And, I mean, you went to a public school as well.
Yes.
It wasn't a private school.
Yeah, we were still public. We're public school.
But even our public school, is very organized sports. We play in a statewide, athletic association, and, we get to do all that stuff. And it was surprising to me that was not the case over there,
Yep.
especially knowing that Troy plays a bunch of sports.
Yeah, it's it's definitely different. Like back home, instead of like, I think you used to call it like travel league up here.
Yep.
All of our main sports are played outside of school. Like occasionally we'll have school sports where we might play a team in a sport, but it's not. Especially my school, it wasn't like a competition. Like there was no champions at the end of it. It was more just to get out, have sport. Especially my school was part of a 4-school college. So we all had the same names and we're just a different campus. So that was mostly like we wouldn't go out and verse anyone else. It was all those college teams, like those campus teams.
Right.
And it wasn't organized. Like it could be 5 or 6 weeks of sport, and then you're playing a different sport in a couple weeks later. So
that is that's going to be it for part one of this podcast. Just to recap, we talked about his Troy's trip from Sydney to Dallas, Dallas to St. Louis. We talked about, the boys going and picking him up and coming back home, and really his first full 24 hours in the States. So we're going to be doing a part 2 and a part 3 of this whole podcast. So definitely keep looking for the other 2 parts. They might come out a little bit later than this one. But we just want to thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll check you on later.